In the quiet town of Oba, there lived a 7-year-old boy named Leo. Leo was a cheerful child who loved to play with the neighborhood kids and read storybooks. He had a warm smile that could light up the darkest of days, but deep down, his laughter had begun to fade. Leo lived with his parents, Mr. Kola and Mrs. Lola. To outsiders, they seemed like the perfect family, but inside their home, Leo faced a dark reality that no child should ever endure. Mr. Kola worked from home as a web developer, while Mrs. Lola owned the largest fabric store in Lagos. She was a businesswoman obsessed with her work, spending long hours in the city and leaving Leo under his father's care. Though Lola provided for her family financially, her emotional absence was glaring. Leo yearned for her attention, but she always seemed too busy. One evening, Leo sat quietly in his room when Mr. Kola walked in, closing the door behind him. His father smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile Leo trusted. "Leo," his father began, "I want to show you something special. But it's our little secret, okay?" Leo, trusting his father as all children do, nodded hesitantly. But what followed would shatter his innocence. That night Kola began to force himself on his son, ignoring Leo's cries of pain and fear. Leo didn't fully understand what was happening, but he knew it was wrong. He cried out, "Daddy, stop. It hurts." But Mr. Kola ignored his son's pleas. The next morning, Leo sat at the breakfast table, silent and withdrawn. Mrs. Lola, oblivious to her son's distress, chatted about her latest sales and upcoming trips to purchase more fabrics. Leo tried to muster the courage to tell her, but fear silenced him. His father had warned him, "If you tell anyone, something bad will happen to you." Leo's once vibrant spirit began to dim, and his world grew darker with each passing day. Mrs. Lola's fabric store in Lagos was her pride and joy. Known as Lola Textiles, it was the go-to place for brides, fashion designers, and merchants. She had built the business from scratch and took great pride in its success. Her husband, Kola, often praised her entrepreneurial skills, but deep down, she failed to notice how her relentless focus on work was tearing her family apart. Meanwhile, Leo spent most of his days indoors, either reading books or trying to avoid his father's gaze. His heart ached for his mother's attention, but whenever he tried to speak to her, she dismissed him with a wave of her hand. "Leo, can't you see I'm busy? Go and play," she would say. One afternoon, Leo mustered the courage to approach her while she was counting money at the dining table. "Mommy," he began, his voice trembling, "why does Daddy hurt me when you're not home?" Lola barely looked up. "Leo, not now. I'm trying to balance my accounts. Go and do your homework." "But Mommy, please." "Leo," she snapped, "stop disturbing me. You always complain about something. Go to your room." Leo's heart sank. He wanted to scream to force his mother to listen, but her focus was always on her work. He retreated to his room, tears streaming down his face. At night, the pattern continued. Mr. Kola would sneak into Leo's room, ignoring the boy's cries and pleas for mercy. Leo's days were filled with silence, his nights with horror. His once lively personality began to fade, replaced by a quiet, haunted demeanor. Leo stopped trying to confide in his mother after several failed attempts. Her indifference hurt almost as much as his father's abuse. It was as if the world had turned its back on him. The cheerful boy who once ran around the neighborhood with his friends now preferred to stay indoors, hiding in corners and avoiding eye contact with anyone. One evening, as Lola prepared dinner, Leo approached her again. "Mommy, I need to talk to you." "It's important," he whispered. "Leo, not now." "I'm busy," she replied without even turning around. "Please, Mommy, it's about Daddy," he pleaded, his voice breaking. Lola sighed heavily, finally facing her son. Leo, your father works so hard for this family. Stop making up stories. You're lucky to have everything you need. Some children don't even have food to eat. Leo bit his lip, fighting back tears. He wanted to scream, "Why won't you listen to me?" But instead he walked away, defeated. As the weeks passed, Leo's silence became more pronounced. He no longer played with the other children in the neighborhood, no longer smiled at the little things that once brought him joy. The light in his eyes had dimmed, replaced by a deep sadness that no one seemed to notice. Mrs. Lola, absorbed in her fabric business, only noticed that Leo had grown quieter. She assumed he was simply maturing. "Boys grow up so fast," she would say to her friends at the store. But in reality, her son was sinking into a darkness she couldn't see. At home, Mr. Cola continued his monstrous acts, threatening Leo every time the boy showed signs of resistance. "If you tell anyone, Leo, I'll make sure you regret it," he would say with a menacing glare. These threats left Leo paralyzed with fear. One night, after another horrifying encounter, Leo sat on the edge of his bed, clutching his favorite storybook tightly. The book was about a brave boy who defeated a giant to save his village. Leo wished he could be brave like the boy in the story. He wished someone would save him from the giant in his life. His father. Unable to bear the weight of his pain, Leo wrote a letter in his shaky handwriting. "Dear Mommy, I'm scared. Daddy hurts me when you are not home. Please help me. I am afraid to say it out loud because Daddy said he will hurt me more. I don't want to be scared anymore. Please listen to me. Love, Leo." He carefully folded the letter and slipped it under his mother's bedroom door before retreating to his room. For the first time in weeks, he fell asleep with a faint glimmer of hope that his mother would finally hear his silent cries. The next morning, Lola found the folded piece of paper on the floor outside her bedroom. She frowned, curious about its contents. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she unfolded the letter and began to read. As she read Leo's words, her heart sank. Her hands began to tremble, and tears welled up in her eyes. "What is this?" she whispered to herself. "What does he mean by Daddy hurts me?" Confusion and denial swirled in her mind. She couldn't believe that her husband, Cola, the man she had built a life with, could do something so heinous. "This can't be true," she muttered. But the fear and desperation in Leo's words were undeniable. Lola decided to confront Cola that evening. When he returned home, she handed him the letter. "What is this, Cola? What is Leo talking about?" she demanded, her voice shaking. Cola's face turned pale as he read the letter. He quickly regained his composure and laughed nervously. "Lola, you know how children can be. He's probably making up stories for attention. You've been so busy lately. He just wants more time with you." But Lola wasn't convinced. "Why would he write something like this? This isn't a joke, Cola. I need answers." Cola's expression darkened. "You're overreacting, Lola. If you keep entertaining this nonsense, you'll only confuse the boy. Let me handle it." That night, Lola lay awake, torn between her doubts and her instincts. She wanted to believe her husband, but the pain in Leo's letter lingered in her mind. The following day, Lola decided to observe Leo more closely. She watched him as he ate breakfast, noticing the way he avoided his father's gaze and flinched whenever Cola spoke to him. These small signs began to confirm her fears. When Cola left the house for a meeting, Lola sat down beside Leo. "Sweetheart," she began gently, "can you tell me what's been happening? I promise I'll listen." Leo hesitated, his eyes darting nervously around the room. "Mommy, I'm scared. Daddy said I shouldn't tell anyone." Lola took his small hands in hers. Leo, you're safe with me. I won't let anyone hurt you. Please tell me the truth." With tears streaming down his face, Leo finally opened up. He told his mother everything. His father's threats, the pain he endured, and how long it had been happening. Lola's heart broke with every word. She pulled Leo into a tight embrace, tears falling freely from her eyes. "I'm so sorry, my baby," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't see this sooner." That night, Lola made a decision. She couldn't let this continue. She had to protect her son at all costs, even if it meant confronting the man she once trusted. Lola couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, Leo's trembling voice replayed in her mind. The weight of her guilt felt unbearable, but she knew that she had to act quickly. For the sake of her son, she had to confront Kola, no matter how terrifying the thought was. The next evening, after Leo had gone to bed, Lola waited for Kola in the living room. Her heart pounded as she rehearsed the words in her mind. When Kola walked in, she stood, her hands clenched at her sides. "Kola," she began, her voice trembling but firm, "I spoke to Leo." Kola froze for a moment, then set down his briefcase. "What did he tell you?" he asked, his voice cold. "He told me everything," Lola said, her voice rising. "Everything you've been doing to him. How could you? How could you hurt your own child?" Kola's face twisted with anger. "You don't know what you're talking about, Lola. That boy is lying." "No!" Lola shouted, her voice shaking with fury. "He's not lying, Kola. I saw the fear in his eyes, the pain in his voice. How dare you try to deny this?" Kola stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous tone. "You don't understand, Lola. You don't question me in this house. I am the head of this family." Lola stood her ground, her eyes blazing with determination. "Not anymore. You've lost that right the moment you decided to harm our son. I won't let you hurt him again." Kola sneered. "And what do you think you can do? You can't survive without me, Lola. You'll ruin this family over a child's lies." Lola felt a surge of strength she didn't know she had. "You already ruined this family, Kola. I'll protect Leo, even if it means leaving you." The confrontation left Lola shaken but resolute. She knew Kola wouldn't change, and staying in the house with him would only put Leo in more danger. That night, she began planning their escape. She reached out to her sister Tolu, who lived in another city. Tolu listened in stunned silence as Lola explained everything. "You have to leave, Lola," Tolu said firmly. "Come here. You and Leo will be safe with me." Lola knew it wouldn't be easy. Kola was controlling and always kept a close watch on her. She decided to act as if everything was normal while she quietly made arrangements to leave. Over the next few days, Lola began packing their belongings in secret. She stored Leo's clothes in a suitcase hidden in her sewing room and withdrew small amounts of money from their joint account. Every step she took filled her with both fear and hope. Leo noticed the change in his mother. She seemed calmer, more attentive. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, she whispered, "Leo, we're going to leave this place. I'm taking you somewhere safe." Leo's eyes widened with relief. "Really, Mommy? You promise?" "I promise," Lola said, holding him close. "We'll be free soon." The day of their escape finally arrived. Lola waited until Kola left for a business trip, knowing he wouldn't return until late the next night. She packed the last of their belongings and called a taxi to take them to the bus station. As they waited for the taxi outside their home, Leo clung to his mother's hand. "Will Daddy find us?" he asked, his voice trembling. Lola knelt down and looked into his eyes. "No, my love. I won't let him. We're going far away, and he'll never hurt you again." The taxi arrived and they climbed in. As the car pulled away from the house, Lola felt a mixture of fear and relief. She knew their journey was far from over, but for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope. They arrived at the bus station just as the sun was setting. Lola bought 2 tickets for the next bus to Toulouse City. She kept a watchful eye on the crowd, paranoid that Cola might appear at any moment. When the bus finally departed, Lola held Leo close and whispered, "We're going to be okay, Leo. I promise." For the first time in weeks, Leo smiled. The bus ride was long and quiet, but for Lola and Leo, it felt like the start of freedom. Leo rested his head on Lola's lap, and though she was exhausted, Lola stayed awake, watching the road and clutching their bag tightly. She couldn't afford to relax, not yet. When they finally arrived at Toulouse home, the relief was overwhelming. Toulouse ran out to meet them, pulling Lola and Leo into a warm embrace. "You're safe now," she said, her voice full of emotion. "I'll take care of you." Inside, Toulouse had already prepared a room for them. It was small but cozy, with a bed big enough for both Lola and Leo. For the first time in what felt like forever, they could rest without fear. Leo, sensing the safety of their new surroundings, spoke in a quiet voice. "Is this our new home, Mommy?" "For now, yes," Lola replied, stroking his hair. "It's not forever, but it's a good place for us to start." Toulouse brought them dinner, and they ate together in silence. Lola couldn't help but feel grateful for her sister's support. She knew that escaping Cola was only the first step. Now she had to figure out how to rebuild their lives. The next morning, Lola woke up with a sense of determination. She needed to find a way to provide for Leo and herself. While Toulouse assured her that she could stay as long as needed, Lola didn't want to rely on her sister forever. "I'll find a job," Lola said over breakfast. "Something simple to start with." "Take your time," Toulouse insisted. "You've been through so much. Focus on settling in first." But Lola was eager to regain her independence. She spent the next few days exploring the neighborhood and asking about work opportunities. Eventually, she found a position as a seamstress at a small tailor shop. The pay wasn't much, but it was a start. Leo, meanwhile, began to relax in their new environment. He played with Toulouse's children and started opening up more. His laughter, which had been absent for so long, filled the house once again. One evening, as Lola tucked Leo into bed, he asked, "Will Daddy come looking for us?" Lola hesitated before answering. "He might, but we won't let him find us. You're safe here, Leo." Leo nodded, trusting his mother's words. Despite the progress they were making, Lola couldn't shake the fear that Cola would track them down. She knew how controlling he was and how much he hated losing control. Her fears were confirmed when Toulouse received a call from a mutual friend. "Lola, Cola's been asking about you," Toulouse said, her face grim. "He's furious that you left and is threatening to find you." Lola's heart sank. "What can I do, Toulouse? I don't want him to hurt Leo again." "You need to report him," Toulouse said firmly. "Go to the police. Let them know what he's done." Lola hesitated. The idea of confronting Cola through the authorities terrified her. But she knew that protecting Leo meant facing her fears. The next day, Lola went to the local police station and filed a report. She explained everything, from the abuse Leo had suffered to the threats Cola had made. The officers assured her that they would investigate and provide protection if necessary. The days after Lola filed the police report were tense. She couldn't shake the feeling that Cola might find them at any moment. Toulouse reassured her constantly, reminding her that the police now had the power to act if Cola made any move. One afternoon, Lola was at the tailor shop, focused on stitching a client's dress, when she noticed a man standing outside the shop. Her heart skipped a beat. Was it cola? She froze, her needle slipping from her fingers. Lola, are you okay? Her boss, Mama Ada, asked, noticing her pale face. I thought I saw someone, Lola stammered. Mama Ada walked outside to check but returned moments later. There's no one there now, she said, her voice gentle. Don't let your fears control you, my dear. Though relieved, Lola remained on edge. That night, she confided in Tolu. I can't keep living like this, always looking over my shoulder. You're stronger than you think, Lola, Tolu replied. But if you feel unsafe, we can talk to the police again about increasing security. Despite her sister's encouragement, Lola knew she needed to be prepared for anything. She began devising a plan to protect Leo if Cola ever showed up. She taught him what to do if he ever felt scared or saw someone unfamiliar near the house. Leo, sensing his mother's anxiety, promised, I'll be careful, Mommy. I'll do whatever you say. It happened on a quiet evening. Lola and Tolu were preparing dinner while the children played in the living room. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. Lola's heart raced. Tolu gestured for her to stay calm. Let me handle this, she whispered, walking toward the door. When she opened it, there stood Cola, his face twisted with anger. Where is she? He demanded, his voice loud enough to send chills through the house. You need to leave, Tolu said firmly, blocking the doorway. She's my wife, and I have a right to see her. Cola shouted, trying to push past Tolu. Lola, trembling but determined, stepped forward. I'm not your wife anymore, Cola. I left because of what you did to me and to Leo. You have no right to be here. Cola's face darkened. You think you can just walk away? You belong to me, Lola. Tolu signaled one of her children to call the police. Cola didn't notice, too focused on trying to intimidate Lola. You don't own me, Lola said, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. And if you come near me or Leo again, I'll make sure you face the consequences. Moments later, the sound of sirens filled the air. Cola turned to see the police arriving. Realizing he was outnumbered, he tried to flee, but the officers quickly apprehended him. Lola watched as Cola was handcuffed and led away. Relief washed over her, but so did a wave of emotions: fear, anger, and a bittersweet sense of victory. With Cola in custody, Lola finally felt the weight on her shoulders begin to lift. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still court proceedings and the task of rebuilding her life. Tolu embraced her tightly that night. You did it, Lola. You stood up for yourself and Leo. I'm so proud of you. Leo, too young to fully understand the details, simply hugged his mother. We're safe now, right, Mommy? Yes, my love, Lola replied, tears in her eyes. We're safe. Over the next few weeks, Lola focused on healing. She continued working at the tailor shop and started saving money for a place of her own. Tolu remained her rock, supporting her every step of the way. In time, Lola began to share her story with other women in similar situations, offering them hope and encouragement. She wanted them to know that leaving an abusive relationship was possible, even when it felt impossible. As for Leo, he thrived in his new environment. His laughter became a daily source of joy for Lola, a reminder of why she had fought so hard. Though the scars of her past would never fully fade, Lola knew she had reclaimed her life, and she was determined to make it a life worth living. No one deserves to live in fear or endure abuse. Courage and support from loved ones can help overcome even the darkest situations. Seeking help and standing up for oneself can lead to freedom, healing, and a brighter future.